So I've gone ahead and combined current NHL teams with their alumni team, and we're going to figure out which is the greatest franchise of all time. So I'm going to go ahead, simulate through a season. We're going to get rankings from 1 to 32. We're going to place all these teams on a bracket, and we're going to have a single elimination playoff, and last team standing wins. So when everything was said and done, I don't think it's too much of a surprise that the Detroit Red Wings are going to be finishing at the top with a 56-20-6 record. Right behind them is going to be the Pittsburgh Penguins, followed by the LA Kings, St. Louis Blues, and New York Rangers. Chicago's going to be having a great season as well. They're finishing 6th, while Montreal, they're going to be finishing 7th. Meanwhile, sitting dead last in the entire league by quite a large margin, we're going to see the Calgary Flames here, and they're only picking up 20 wins. You also see the Seattle Kraken and Vegas Golden Knights. Since they didn't have alumni teams, they're just going to be rocking their current team. And clearly that's not working for them, as Vegas is finishing 28th while Seattle's finishing 31st. So no surprise here, Wayne Gretzky's leading the way, 115 points, 59 goals, 56 helpers. Finishing second is also going to be Wayne Gretzky, and finishing third, you wouldn't have guessed this one, Wayne Gretzky as well. There's also another Gretzky in the top 10. He's from the New York Rangers. He's picking up 96 points. So it's safe to say it doesn't really matter what era Wayne Gretzky plays in, he's going to dominate. Meanwhile, it's pretty clear to see that Terry Sawchuk was definitely the best goaltender in the league here. 49 wins, 6 shots, and 920 and a 247. No one even had numbers close to this man. He was on a different level. So now we know what the rankings are and what these statistics are looking like. Let's throw all these teams in a bracket. So I've gone ahead through every single team onto this bracket right here, 1 through 32, and it looks like our first matchup is going to be the Detroit Red Wings taking on the Calgary Flames. Before we get into these matchups though, of course, we have to take a quick look at the rosters. So as we know, the Detroit Red Wings, they have a lot of history and they have some incredible talent here. Marcel Dion, Gordie Howe, Luc Robitaille, Ted Lindsay, Steve Yzerman, Brett Hall, the names go on. And that talent's going to continue on the defensive core. You got Nick Lidstrom, Paul Coffey, Chris Chelios, Larry Murphy, and you even have Mo Seider still here. Well, in between the pipes, that's where you're going to see the biggest upgrade, as Terry Sawchuk, he's going to be the number 1 man here. Moving over to the Calgary Flames, I cannot figure out why this team was so bad. Like, you have a Ginla, Theo Fleury, Doug Gilmour. Like, this is a good team. How they only won 20 games? Couldn't tell you. But you know what? I'm going to take that back, because the defense here isn't necessarily the best. I mean, you have Phil Helsley and Al McGinnis, both 90 overalls, but after adding all those studs from the alumni team to the Calgary Flames, having an 84 overall Chris Tanev is definitely not ideal. Now, Mike Vernon, you better be prepared for a lot of shots, because Detroit's offense, they're not going to be going easy on you. Now, I'm not going to lie to y'all, I have no clue how this game is going to overtime. Detroit was clearly the better team than Calgary. Calgary only won 20 games during the regular season, but now we're off to overtime in game number 1 here. It was a fairly fast-paced overtime with each team getting a bunch of great opportunities, but Al McGinnis is finally going to find the back of the net, and the Calgary Flames are completing the massive upset. So real talk, I have no clue how the Calgary Flames just won that matchup. That means they're taking down the very heavily favored Detroit Red Wings, so we got to move on to our next matchup here, because I'm not going to deal with that nonsense. And now we got the Toronto Maple Leafs taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. But do you want to hear some more nonsense? The Detroit Red Wings are still ahead of me in YouTube subscribers. We got to continue to close the gap here, so if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and drop a like while you're at it. Let's get 1,000 likes on today's video. Now I'm going to be completely honest, I have no clue how the Toronto Maple Leafs only finished 17th in the entire league. Like, look at this team. Like, you have studs from top to bottom here, the lowest overall being an 85. You still have Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander. Like, this team's incredible. How they did this bad, I have no clue. I mean, maybe it was the weak defense that held them back, because they don't have anyone over a 90 overall. But I mean, still, this is a pretty solid defensive core. And on top of that, you got Johnny Bower in between the pipes. So the fact that y'all finished in the bottom half of the league, to me, doesn't really make too much sense. So with Toronto finishing 17th in the entire league, this team's got to be one spot ahead of them. That's going to be the Carolina Hurricanes. And you cannot convince me that this Carolina team should be above the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, respectfully, Michael Bunting is still here. He's an 83 overall, and when I do head coach preferred lines, Michael Bunting is still here. 83 overall Michael Bunting on the Carolina Hurricanes after adding everyone from their alumni team, 16th in the entire league. And it's not like they added anything to the defense either. They added Paul Coffey and they added Jeff Brown. Other than these two guys, it's the same Carolina defense. Meanwhile, Freddie Anderson's still going to be the number 1 goaltender here at an 88 overall. He's going to be ahead of Cam Ward, who's only an 85. So even after adding alumni players to the Toronto Maple Leafs, they still find a way to lose in the first round here, and they're going to be eliminated. No matter what video I do, it's only right for the Toronto Maple Leafs to somehow lose in the first round and be a complete and utter disappointment. Don't know what it is, but it just happens every single time. Now, I wouldn't say that was a massive disappointment, but it is funny how the Toronto Maple Leafs always seem to lose in the first round here. So let's move on to our next matchup, and that's going to feature the Edmonton Oilers and Ottawa Senators. The Edmonton Oilers, y'all were massive disappointments. Yes, you finished 9th in the entire league, but when you have Connor McDavid, Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Leon Draisaitl all on your team together, you should be top 5. Now, Edmonton fans, y'all probably don't recognize this right here. It's called defense. Now, I know you haven't had that in a very long time, but this is what it looks like. Paul Coffey, Chris Pronger, you got Kevin Lowe here. Yeah, these are defensemen. Yeah, the point of these defensemen to help keep the puck out of your net. Guys like Darnell Nurse and Evan Bouchard, they don't know how to do that. And there's 2 other guys that know how to keep the puck out of the net. Grant Fuhrer and Curtis Joseph. These are 2 huge upgrades for the Edmonton Oilers. Now, the Ottawa Senators are going to be looking almost identical because there's basically no good players on their alumni team. Like, I think their alumni team as an overall is only like an 82 or something. Like, it's a terrible team. But in saying that, you got Danny Heatley, you got Daniel Alverson, and you're also going to be adding Marian Hossa. Defensively, you're getting 2 massive upgrades here. That's going to be Gonchard and Wade Redden. And then in between the pipes, because for some reason Craig Anderson isn't on the alumni team. Don't ask me why he isn't, but he isn't. And you got Jonas Korpisalo to rock with then. Good luck. So in the final seconds of this one, Edmonton's going to have the goalie pulled. Connor McDavid is going to try to spark something here, but it doesn't really matter if he scores or not because you're down 2 goals. And the Ottawa Senators here are going to be completing the second massive upset of the video, and we're only 3 matches in. Things have been getting out of hand real quick here, so hopefully the Colorado Avalanche can stop that, and they can find a way to take down the Columbus Blue Jackets. By rights, Colorado should win this one probably about 12-0. Columbus, y'all are cooked, respectfully. Rick Nash, you're going to be adding a nice 88 overall. You're bringing in Scott Hartnell, an 84. Outside of that, you just brought in a lot of depth pieces. Defensively, you're going to be adding Adam Foote and then 2 guys to the third pairing here. Meanwhile, in between the pipes, this is what you're going to be rocking with. I understand why you finished 25th in the entire league. Now, here's the Colorado Avalanche. This team I would have pegged for top 5 as well. Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Jari Kurri on the first line. On the second line, you have some decent players here. I mean, Peter Forsberg, Joe Sakic, Teemu Selanne. Not too sure if these guys are any good, though. Meanwhile, the bottom 6, I would say it's okay. I mean, I guess you could say you have some good defensemen here. Ray Bourque, you got Cale Makar still, Rob Blake, Adam Foote, Bo Byram, Devon Taves. I think that's pretty good. And to top it all off, in between the pipes for the Colorado Avalanche, Patrick Waugh. I can't figure out how this team didn't finish top 5. That doesn't make sense. So it's not really much of a surprise that the Colorado Avalanche are going to be dominating this one. They're only picking up 3 goals here, but that's going to be more than enough. And they're taking this in a 3-0 victory as they're completing the shutout. So the Colorado Avalanche should have an easy second round matchup. They're going to be taking on the Ottawa Senators. So really, we should just put them in the Elite 8 right now. But you know what? Upsets can happen as we've seen that. Now, hopefully this next one isn't an upset because I really want to see what the New York Rangers can do as they're taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. I want to see the Rangers go on a deep run. Like, they got a really good team here. I don't want them losing in the first round. That would be very disappointing. I've been talking a lot about teams that should have finished in the top 5. Well, here's the team that finished 5th exactly. That's going to be the New York Rangers. Wayne Gretzky, Mike Gardner, Artane Panarin, Brendan Shanahan, Mark Messier, Rod Gilbert. This is an incredible team right here, and I understand why they're top 5. Because look at the defense here. When you have guys like Brian Leetch and Adam Fox leading the way, then I know you're in good hands. But we will talk about this real quick. Shesterkin technically having a higher overall than Lundqvist. This is right off the alumni rosters. They have Henrik Lundqvist as a 90 and Shesterkin as a 92. I'm not adjusting ratings. I'm not going to adjust anything here, but Shesterkin's the number 1. No comment. Meanwhile, Vegas is Vegas. So we're not going to go over this team. So the New York Rangers were clearly the better team here. I don't think that's much of a surprise. But the fact that they won 7-1, like, Vegas is a good team, don't get me wrong. But that just shows you how dominant this New York Rangers team is going to be. So I'm happy to see the New York Rangers making it into the second round because I really want to watch this team a lot. I mean, they got so many amazing players on that team. Now this next matchup, whoever takes it's going to have to take on the Rangers. So we'll see who it's going to be. It's either the Vancouver Canucks or Dallas Stars. So far, the Vancouver Canucks have been looking absolutely fantastic this season. So now it's time to improve the team, and the 2 key pieces that this team's going to be adding, of course, the Sedin brothers. Meanwhile, the defense is looking basically the exact same, but the second pairing is going to be getting an upgrade. On top of the defense getting an upgrade, so is the goaltending here, as now you got Roberto Luongo back in between the pipes for y'all. So our new look Dallas Stars are looking like an incredible team here. Mike Modano, Jason Robinson, Brett Hall, Joe Pavelski, Rupe Hintz, Brad Richards. While the bottom 6 here, they can definitely hold it down for y'all. The Dallas Stars are going to be getting some massive upgrades to their defensive core, as Miro Heiskanen and Lindell are actually the only returning pieces. Dallas is also splitting starts between these 2 guys right here, Ed Belfour and Jake Ottinger, so it'll be interesting to see who takes the net in the postseason. If you ask me though, they're probably going to go with Ed Belfour. Now I wish I could say that this Vancouver-Dallas game was a close one, but unfortunately that would just be a lie, as the Dallas Stars are going to be taking this one 4-1 and they're off to the second round to take on the New York Rangers. So we got ourselves another second round matchup set between the New York Rangers and Dallas Stars, but let's figure out what another one's going to be, and we're going to be starting off with the Islanders taking on the Anaheim Ducks. The Islanders are keeping a couple guys here from their current core, but they're also going to be adding guys like LaFontaine, Trottier, and Gillies. Now the top 2 pairings for the Islanders look incredible, but the third pairing having Scott Mayfield Caulfield and Romanov, that's really the best y'all could have done. But don't worry, because even though that third pairing is a bit weak, you still got Sorokin in between the pipes, and you're also going to have Billy Smith backing him up. Normally, I would say you can't sleep on the Anaheim Ducks. I mean, you got Adam Oates, Teemu Selanne, Jari Kurri, but then you look at the third pairing here. You have Mason McTavish here. 20-year-old Mason McTavish is better than some of the players on the alumni team. How does that work? The defense is going to be adding two amazing pieces here, Scott Niedermayer and Chris Pronger, while the other pairings, they're looking pretty similar. Except for this addition to the third pairing, of course. Meanwhile, the Anaheim Ducks are going to be replacing both of their goaltenders. Now Ryan Miller is going to be the starter, and John Sebastian Shiger is going to be backing him up. So it's pretty clear who's going to be off to the second round in this matchup, as the Anaheim Ducks are handing the Islanders a 5-0 loss here. They weren't even able to find the back of the net once. And honestly, that's actually pretty surprising, seeing as the forward core that the Islanders had, they definitely had some elite players. But we have another matchup settled, and now we got to figure out who's going to be taking on the Anaheim Ducks, and we have two fantastic teams here. Well, I mean, one of them's fantastic. You have the Florida Panthers, and then you got the greatest franchise of all time, the St. Louis Blues. They just finished 4th in the entire league. With the amount of talent St. Louis has, I'll be amazed if Florida is able to find the back of the net once. I think out of all the teams we're seeing, the Florida Panthers are going to be adding the fewest pieces. As for the forward core, they're only going to be adding 4 new players. The defense is a different story though, because only Montour and Ekblad are sticking around, as they're going to be adding 4 new defensemen. On top of upgrading the defense, they're also upgrading the goaltending, as they got Roberto Luongo back. Now we have the opportunity to look at one of the best teams in the entire league, the St. Louis Blues. Shanahan, Gretzky, Hall, Buchnevich, Federico, Jordan Kyrou. No clue how Jordan Kyrou is here over Robert Thomas. I might have to make an executive decision here, because Robert Thomas is scratched right now at an 87 overall. That just can't be happening. I'm sorry, but we can't have Jordan Kyrou ahead of this man. But you know what? We're going to let the CPU decide what they want, and I guess that's what they want to rock with. Defensively, of course, we got to bring back some legends. Chris Pronger, Al McGinnis, Jay Bouwmeester, and then you got some of the regular guys, Colton Parayko, Justin Falk, and Torrey Krug. And St. Louis is also going to be bringing in a new goaltender tandem. That's going to be Grant Fuhr and Curtis Joseph. I feel like this is the exact same tandem that Edmonton has, but I can't quite remember. I know they have Grant Fuhr for sure, and I think Curtis Joseph is also backing up for them. Don't quote me on that though. Yeah, so the Florida Panthers were able to find the back of the net. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, and 3 is going to be more than enough for this team, as they're taking us down to 3-1 victory. That is tough right there. That's incredibly tough. So it's time for us to head into our next matchup here, and we're going to be seeing a top 3 team in the entire league, and that's the LA Kings taking on one of the worst in the Philadelphia Flyers. Obviously, if the LA Kings are finishing 3rd in the entire league, you already know they got a bunch of talent here, and Wayne Gretzky, Luc Robitaille, and Jari Kurri, they're going to be leading the way for the forward core. Defensively, this team's going to be getting a massive upgrade, as Drew Doughty's actually the only returning piece. The rest of this team, massive upgrades across the board. On top of a new defense, we also have a new goaltending tandem, and Rogie Vachon is going to be leading the way. So there must be something fundamentally wrong with this Philadelphia Flyers team, because I don't understand how this forward core right here is finishing 30th in the entire league. Like, yeah, the defense isn't the best by any means, but you have Chris Pronger and Mark Howe here, so I mean, those are 2 solid pieces. And you also have 2 solid goaltenders in between the pipes, and Bernie Perrin and Ron Hextall. So 30th in the entire league, I wouldn't sleep on this team. I think they're better than what their record shows. So with time winding down this LA and Philadelphia game, it's not really too much of a surprise that the Kings are coming out on top, but Philly put up a pretty good fight here, picking up 3 goals. But it's not going to be enough, and Wayne Gretzky and the LA Kings are off to the second round. Now it's time for us to figure out who the LA Kings are taking on. It's either going to be the New Jersey Devils or Winnipeg Jets. These are 2 great teams right here. They finished pretty close to each other in the standings. It could really go either way. Now the New Jersey Devils are going to have a mix of alumni players and current players. I mean, the first line, I think it's staying exactly the same. Jesper Bratt, Jack Hughes, Tyler Toffoli, and then on the third line here, you're going to see Timo Meier, Nico Hischier. So between having all these guys from the current team and then all these alumni players, the New Jersey Devils are going to be a great team. The defense is also going to have some current pieces, but they are getting some major upgrades, and one of them is going to include Scott Niedermayer. And of course, the biggest upgrade for this New Jersey Devils team, we all saw this one coming, 94 overall Martin Brodeur. Now the Winnipeg Jets is one of those teams where you just look at the forward core here, and you can't figure out how they finished 14th in the entire league. Of course, you have some of the greats, Teemu Selanne, Dale Hawerchuk, you have Kyle Connor from the current team, Nikola Ehlers, Mark Scheifele, and then you just look at the bottom 6 here. Comparing this bottom 6 to some of the other bottom 6s we've seen today, how are y'all 14th? Like, yeah, the defense is great here. Sergei Savard, Phil Housley, Josh Morrissey, of course. Maybe that was the big difference maker for this team. When it comes to goaltending, you're still rocking Connor Hellebuyck and Bourgeois as the backup. So yeah, 14th in the entire league, the Winnipeg Jets. Guess I have to start putting a bit more respect on their name. With time winding down in this one, Jack Hughes is probably going to bury this into the empty net. Of course he is. The New Jersey Devils are taking this one 4-1, but we got to see a Martin Brodeur masterclass, and that's the reason New Jersey's advancing. So now that we know who the LA Kings are going to be taking on, it's time to figure out another matchup, and it's going to be between the Boston Bruins and Arizona Coyotes. In Boston, I'm actually very surprised you finished 11th overall in the entire league. I was expecting a bit more from you, but hey, as long as you can show up in the postseason, that's when it really matters. Now here's our Boston Bruins team, 11th in the entire league. Now you might look at this team and say, well, stick on the ice, this looks very identical to the Winnipeg Jets. A very strong top 6, but the bottom 6, not the greatest. And I would agree with that point. But then you look at the defense and there's a clear difference. Ray Bourque, Bobby Orr, Charlie McAvoy, Zdeno Chara, and then Brad Park and Carlo to finish off the third pairing. And you still have 90 overall Linus Ullmark in between the pipes for the Boston Bruins, so I think the defense is what really separates the Boston Bruins from Winnipeg Jets. Now with the Arizona Coyotes, y'all have been a poverty franchise for a very long time here, but even though you've been a poverty franchise, you still got some decent pieces here, and that's including Jeremy Roenick, Mike Gardner, Keith Tkachuk, and of course Owen Nolan. And I'm sorry, I can't forget about Shane Doan, one of the faces of the franchise. The defense stinks though. I'm just going to keep it a buck with that. 84 overall Matt Dumba and JJ Moser on the third pairing. Yeah, that's definitely not it. But you have Curtis Joseph in between the pipes, so maybe he can steal you a couple games. So in the final seconds of this one, I was fully expecting Arizona to take it, but Phil Esposito is going to be picking up a big goal with 7.2 seconds left, and that means we're off to overtime. And it's going to take more than one overtime, but early into double OT, Brad Marchand's going to find a way to bury one in the back of the net, and the Boston Bruins are going to be advancing. So that game was a lot closer than I expected. I thought Boston was going to easily be taking that one, but I guess not. They are still advancing, but it was much closer than I thought. Moving on to our next match, we got the Nashville Predators taking on the heavily favored Chicago Blackhawks. Alright Nashville, y'all are cooked. Peter Forsberg, I still haven't figured out why you're on Nashville's alumni team. You played like what? 16 games of this franchise? Here's the defense, virtually no changes here, but when it comes to goaltenders, I'm just going to say this right now. I do not understand why Pekka Rinne is not an available option. For some reason, UC Saros is on their alumni team, but Pekka Rinne isn't. Are we just going to act like Pekka Rinne didn't play for the Nashville Predators? Doesn't he have a statue out in front of their building? Like, at least put him on the alumni team. I guess EA doesn't have his rights, so I mean, I understand why not. Meanwhile, this is the team that's going to be smoking the Nashville Predators, the Chicago Blackhawks. From top to bottom, this team's better. Defensively, Nashville's actually closer than you would think with the Chicago Blackhawks because they do have Roman Josi, and that's a massive piece. But Chicago still has Phil Housley, Chris Chelios, Seth Jones, Hjalmarsson. I mean, you got some good defensive pieces here. The goaltending is going to be the real difference maker though. Glenn Hall and Ed Balfour. I have a hard time believing that Nashville's going to be able to find the back of the net multiple times on these two guys. So although the Chicago Blackhawks were the heavy favorites in this matchup, it doesn't really matter because the Nashville Predators are completing a massive upset here as they're going to be able to take down the 6th seeded Blackhawks. Also shout out to my dog Ryan O'Reilly because I know for a fact he had a goal in this game. He was holding it down for Nashville. After that massive upset, the Minnesota Wild are looking to do the exact same thing as they're taking on Montreal. So for the Montreal Canadiens, I decided to bring in an absolute legend and a fan favorite. We're going to have Clappin' Butts listing off the names here.
Alrighty, first name on the list, we got Mahovlich, which is, yeah, that's something. We got Morons, Richard, Shut, Believe, Conveyor, Gainey, another Richard, because one wasn't enough, I guess. Jeff Ryan, I might have actually said that one right. Savard, Lack, that guy's lacking, and Maholich.
All right, so that was a great job there for the offense. We'll move on over to the defense, and Clappin' Butts continue with those gems you're giving us.
Yeah, that one's easy. I could say Robinson, easy peasy. Cheerios, another Savard, LaPointe, Matheson, and Suzuki, like the car.
Okay, I gotta say here, this game's incredibly stupid because we have Nick Suzuki playing defense, but yet we scratched a defenseman, so yeah. We'll make a quick adjustment here and we'll get this all right. So after those adjustments, this is what the new defense is looking like. No clue why Nick Suzuki was here to begin with, but we're going to ignore it. And to finish it all off, Clappin' Butts, can you please name these goaltenders?
Well, we got a solid Patrick Roy. Can't mess that one up. And just below that, we got, I'm going to go Jack Plant.
And once again, I'd like to thank Clappin' Butts for coming in and pronouncing these names for us. Big Montreal Canadiens fan right here. So for the Minnesota Wild, we have some pretty easy names to say here. Probably should have had Clappin' Butts do these ones, but you know what? I'm going to rock with it myself. Joel Eriksson, Kirill Kaprizov, Owen Nolan, and the rest of the forward core here, honestly, is pretty mid. The defense isn't really seeing too many upgrades. It's actually seeing basically none at all besides the second pairing here, so I'm not expecting Minnesota to do too much. Meanwhile, for goaltenders, Philip Gustafson's still going to be the #1 guy here, but we got Nick Backstrom backing him up. So I accidentally went ahead and simulated through the entire game, so that's my fault right there, but it doesn't really matter. Montreal is winning 6-0. Too bad Clappin Butts isn't here to read off our goal scorers, so I think you'd get a few names right here. Shout out to Richard for picking up a goal. So we're going to quickly move on from that screw up, and here's our next matchup. That's going to be the Washington Capitals taking on the Boston Bruins. So Clappin Butts has returned here because he saw the Washington Capitals, and he believes that he can name all the notable players here. So Clappin Butts, go ahead.
Alrighty, I'm a pretty big Capitals fan, so I'm gonna just list off the ones that have always been my favorites. Start off obviously with good old Alexander Ovechkin. Yeah, that's it.
So thanks Clappin Butts for that. I'll move on to do the defense here. We got Sergei Gonchar, John Carlson, Larry Murphy, and the rest of the players here. Some pretty solid pieces for their defensive core. Meanwhile, in between the pipes, we got Bill Ranford here. He's going to be the new #1 with Darcy Kemper backing him up. So for the Buffalo Sabres here, of course, we're going to have Tage Thompson, Jeff Skinner, and Alex Tuch, the regular #1 line. But we are adding some decent pieces here on the second line. That's going to include LaFontaine and Howard Chuck. And the bottom six, it's not looking too bad, but it's also not looking that great. Defensively, we're getting some pretty solid upgrades here as Phil Housley's now in the top pairing with Rasmus Dahlin. Meanwhile, in between the pipes, we have two legendary goaltenders. We got Dominic Hasek and Ryan Miller. Now I was hyping Dominic Hasek up as a legendary goaltender, but here's the overtime winner. Yeah, that's a tough look. So we're down to our final two matchups of the first round, and this one's going to feature the Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the San Jose Sharks. So Tampa Bay, they're already an incredibly strong team, but why not add a few more pieces here? So Dennis Savard, welcome back. Marty St. Louis, welcome back. And Brad Richards, you're going to be holding it down on the third line here. Defensively, they're keeping a lot of similar pieces here, but they are going to be adding some legends. And Dan Boyle, he's going to be the top legend coming back at an 87 overall. When it comes to goaltending, of course, Andre Vasilevsky is going to be the #1 guy here. I don't think that's surprising to many people. So the San Jose Sharks are just a poverty franchise all around, so not really going to be adding too many good players here, but I guess Teemu Selanne can maybe get them to 2 wins. Defensively, they still look incredibly bad, even with Rob Blake joining the team, so I don't expect them to do too much. But who knows, maybe Mike Vernon can steal 1 or 2 games from them, but even still, I highly doubt that's going to be happening. So I don't think it's much of a surprise that the San Jose Sharks were just no match for the Tampa Bay Lightning, as Tampa's going to be taking this one easily 5-1. And at last, we've reached our final first round matchup, and that's going to feature the second seeded Pittsburgh Penguins taking on the 31st seeded Seattle Kraken. So with the Seattle Kraken, we don't really need to go over this team because they don't have an alumni team, so they're just going to be rocking their current team. And now we're going to take a quick look at the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Clappin Butts is going to be returning one more time to name off all the players. After he's done his PUBG game, of course. So Clappin Butts is back here. You know, he just had a fantastic PUBG game. Rumor has it he had 13 kills in solo and actually came out on top. So Clappin Butts, drop some gems for us here.
All right, starting on the lineup here, we got Francis, Lemieux, Yager, Ratchy, Guerin, Mahalovic, Larice, Kuntz, Gunsel, and Malkin. Those are the and Trottier. I almost forgot about him. Those are the only real good players on this team. So on the D line, we got good old Black Rose Coffee, Carlson, Eddie Murphy, Goncha, Carlisle, and Letang. And goalies, we got good old Tristan Jerry and G Meloch.
Once again, want to give a big shout out to Clappin Butts for joining the channel today. Dropping a few gems for us. He will be in a few upcoming videos. He shows up from time to time. In the final seconds of this game, Pittsburgh's going to be putting some solid pressure on. Sidney Crosby's going to be getting the puck in the slot, but unfortunately, time's going to be running out on him, and that means the Seattle Kraken are going to be taking this one home. And with that Kraken win, we've officially moved on to the second round, and our first second round matchup is going to have the Calgary Flames taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. So I don't know how the Calgary Flames keep on doing it, but Jonathan Huberdeau, he's going to be picking up the empty netter here. His 3rd goal of the game, he's got the trick, and the Calgary Flames are off to the Elite 8. So Calgary's off to the Elite 8, and it really doesn't make any sense how this team has made it this far, but if they have to match up against the Colorado Avalanche, then I think their time's going to be running out. But first, Colorado has to get past Ottawa, and based on how the last matchup went, anything could happen. In the Colorado-Ottawa game, it looks like the better team is going to be coming out on top in this one, as the Avs are going to be taking this one 3-1. And why is Patrick Wall wearing a Montreal Canadiens mask? I took him from the Colorado alumni team, but yet he's not wearing the right mask. Alright then. But you know what? We're not going to worry about Patrick Wall and him wearing the wrong mask. We're just going to move on to our next matchup, and that's going to feature the Rangers taking on the Stars. So this matchup between the Dallas Stars and New York Rangers is going to be needing overtime, but ain't no way Miro Heiskanen's shot from the point is going to be the game winner here. That wasn't even a strong shot by any means. He just threw it towards the net and it somehow got past Shesterkin. That massive goal from Miro Heiskanen is going to allow them to advance to the Elite Eight, and now we got to figure out who the Dallas Stars are going to be taking on. It's either going to be the 20th seeded Anaheim Ducks or the 29th seeded Florida Panthers. Also, can we talk about Dallas completing that massive upset over the Rangers? I pegged them as one of the favorites to win, and now they're out in the second round. Anaheim's going to be putting on a ton of pressure in the final seconds here, but it's not going to be enough. Even if they score a goal here, they're still going to be dropping this one as Florida's picking up 5 goals. And it looks like Anaheim's not picking up another, so they're going to be losing this one 5-3. We're officially done with half of our second round matchup, so it's time to move on to the lower half of the bracket, and this is going to feature the LA Kings taking on the New Jersey Devils in our first matchup. The LA Kings are going to be putting on some late pressure, but a 5-3 lead's more than enough for the New Jersey Devils as they're going to be taking this one. So far we've had 5 teams advance to the Elite Eight, and we've had so many upsets that the best ranking seed is the Colorado Avalanche, and they're only the 8th. So it's safe to say anyone can win in these matchups. So let's figure out who's going to be coming out on top between the Boston Bruins and Nashville Predators. So we have another game here that's needing overtime, but with the Boston Bruins having the full pressure bar all maxed out, it's not too much of a surprise they're going to find the back of the net here. So that was definitely a close one, but the Boston Bruins are going to find a way to come out on top in that matchup. So we got to move on to our next one, and that's going to feature the Montreal Canadiens taking on the Washington Capitals. And if Montreal could find a way to win this one, then they'll be the lowest seeded team advancing to the Elite Eight. So that stacked Montreal team is going to find a way to advance here, as they're going to be taking the Washington Capitals down a 4-1 victory. And with that win from the Montreal Canadiens, we're down to our final second round matchup, and that's going to feature the Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the Seattle Kraken. How Seattle made to the second round, I still haven't figured out. In the final seconds of this one, Tampa's going to be drawing a penalty, but there's no reason this team has to go on the power play because Nikita Kucherov's going to be picking up an empty net goal, and they're taking this one 4-1. So we're officially down to our Elite Eight, and let's get into one of our top matchups here, and that's going to be the Colorado Avalanche taking on the Calgary Flames. Can the Wagon and the Calgary Flames continue their dominance and complete another upset, or are the heavily favored Colorado Avalanche going to continue to roll? Now, honestly, I cannot explain how the Calgary Flames are taking another game here. They've advanced to the Final Four. The 32nd seed just beat the 8. Calgary is an absolute wagon right now, and they just keep on rolling. A 20-win team is made to the Final Four. Ain't no way. So let's figure out who's going to be taking on the Calgary Flames. If you were going to ask me, I would say the Dallas Stars here. But you know what? Seeding doesn't really mean too much because we have the 32nd seed in the Final Four. So it's between the Dallas Stars and Florida Panthers on who's going to be taking on Calgary. So far, the Panthers Stars game has been a great one. They've been going back and forth the entire way. And this one's going to need a bit more than 60 minutes. So we're off to overtime. And once again in overtime, the Dallas Stars are going to find a way to find the back of the net. And ironically, it's actually another current player, this time Roope Hintz. And Dallas is off to the Final Four. With that Dallas Stars win, they're going to be moving on to the Final Four. And they're taking on the Calgary Flames. We might as well move on to the second half of our bracket. And that's going to feature the New Jersey Devils taking on the Boston Bruins. Unlike the last game the Boston Bruins were involved in, this one's not going to be needing overtime as Boston's going to be dominating this one as they're taking it 5-2. And unfortunately, that means Marty Brodeur is going to be falling here and he's not off to the Final Four. You hate to see it. It's really unfortunate that we're going to have to see Marty Brodeur fall in the Elite Eight here, but you know what? We're going to have to move on from that disappointment real quick here because now we have the Montreal Canadiens taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. So it's been a back and forth game the entire way between the Montreal Canadiens and Tampa Bay Lightning. So the only logical end to this game is the defenseman completely ignoring Nick Paul, him getting sprung for a breakaway, and then beating Patrick Waugh with only a couple seconds left. Yeah, that's tough. Montreal, I'm not going to lie, that's a tough way to go out. Giving Nick Paul a breakaway in the final seconds, he beats Patrick Waugh and you only have like 3 seconds to respond. That might be the worst way you could possibly go out. But since you're losing, that means we're down to our final 4 teams. You have the Calgary Flames taking on the Dallas Stars, the Boston Bruins taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Let's start in the upper half of our bracket, and that's going to be the Calgary Flames and Dallas Stars. So you're telling me a team that won 20 games in the regular season, finished dead last in the entire league, has now made to the finals after burying an empty netter to make this game 5-3. Something about this just doesn't sit right with me. I guess it's safe to say that anything is possible because the Calgary Flames, who won 20 games, have made it all the way to the finals. And now the question is, which of these teams is going to be losing to Calgary? The Boston Bruins or Tampa Bay Lightning? It's been a close game the entire way between the Boston Bruins and Tampa Bay Lightning, but in the final seconds here, Dennis Savard is going to be burying the empty netter, and we have our final set, the Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the Calgary Flames. So it all comes down to this one final matchup. The 32nd seeded Calgary Flames taking on the 15th seeded Tampa Bay Lightning. There's no reason that the Calgary Flames should be here right now, but since they are, they might as well go ahead and win it. In our final game here, it looks like luck has finally ran out for the Calgary Flames because they're not going to have an answer for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa's going to be picking up 7 in this game, and they're going to be taking it in a 7-4 victory. But really, we've got to give a lot of respect to the Calgary Flames here because the team that won 20 games during the regular season somehow made it all the way to the final here. Unfortunately, they're going to be falling. It would have been a great story if they were able to close it out. But you know what? That's not happening here, and Tampa's taking it home.